We started out by listening to that awesome live recording you guys did from the Good Mountain, and you mentioned to me before we started that you had some pretty cool stories about that track. So maybe we should start on that foot.
Yeah, well, it's definitely one of the first songs that we wrote for Migrations, and still probably all in all contains everything in that album. It's a great song, and the version we just heard is from 2017 in Australia when we flew over to Sydney, and we did a couple of shows in Sydney and a show in Melbourne, and while we were there, we recorded 3 tracks at Deaf Wolf Studios when they used to be at Redfern in Sydney. And I'd got there a day early to get the tour van and to pick all the guys up from the airport. So I'd had barely any sleep, but the other guys in the band had literally just got off the plane at about 8 o'clock in the morning from New Zealand and probably up since like 3 or something. And I had just enough time to pick them up in the tour van, take them to grab a coffee and whatever, and just start playing. We had the studio for half a day. We had 7 videographers in there. We had all kinds of sound people. We just recorded it live and played the song a few times until we said, yeah, that's the take, and just did the separation by, putting the cabs out in different rooms and whatnot. And with all of those people, with all the band, all the videographers and helpers and whatnot in that tiny little room, it was already hard to breathe, but we were in there for half a day, and there were candles everywhere burning the oxygen. So, we're all pretty, not only are we tired and, we haven't had much to eat, but, yeah, we're sort of running out of air as well. But I think we did well considering. But, yeah, that was a really fun time in Australia. That was set up by a very good friend of mine, Josh Broom, who's the administrator of the Moshcam website in Australia, and was able to pull a few strings for us, studio-wise and videographer-wise, and cut us 2 really nice videos from that day. So thanks, Josh, if you're listening.
Yeah, fantastic. And did you do any other shows or anything while you were there, or did you mainly just go to shoot those videos?
We had 2 shows in Sydney. One was at Frankie's Pizza, which was an absolutely brilliant place to play and hang out. And then we played at the Townie in Newtown the following night, and then we flew down to Melbourne and played at the Last Chance Rock and Roll Bar in central Melbourne.
Cool.
Yeah, man. We'd combined that with a bunch of dates around the North Island and the South Island of New Zealand. It was quite a big tour all up. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And you said so that's back in 2017.
Yeah.
And sort of from what I could see on your Facebook page, like you guys recently had a 7-year anniversary. So you've been together a couple of years before that. So you would have started roughly back in 2013 then.
Yeah, it started in 2013, and then 1 year into it, they lost 2 members, and then I joined, and so we wrote the first album as sort of like a brand new 4-piece, really.
Okay.
All in the first year. We did heaps of shows and stuff like that, and then we made a bunch of mistakes on the first album that we just wanted to rectify and come up with a better product. And so we spent a long time on Migrations and actually debuted the songs live with the release of the album.
Oh, nice.
Which was fun. We'd been able to do that, and it was really good. We did a little North Island tour, 5 dates. 5 or 6 dates, I can't remember. And so we're just getting into the writing of the next album right now.
Cool. Also, there's a third album coming, sort of out of the whole Corona lockdown, or what?
Yeah. Well, actually, a lot of the beginnings of it have been composed during the lockdown, thankfully. So some positivity there. Lester and Tom are 2 of the guys in the band that are probably the most formally educated music-wise, and after we'd played a couple of shows with Mono from Japan, which was really amazing to see them do what they do. It kind of gave us a new thing to shoot for, a new level of quality and a new way of doing things, because prior to playing our shows with mono and seeing them in action, all of our songs are basically the skeleton of them are chord progressions, but each of our parts are written by each member of the band, and we would jam on sections until we got them right, and sort of leave it to each member to write their own parts, which is good. But what we saw with mono really blew our minds, and it was like all of them were playing one big instrument and playing a component of it, and it blew us all away. So our goal is to sort of try and strive to do better, and so that for this album, Tom and Lester are scoring the compositions and sort of bouncing them off each other. So I've just been practicing a little bit today with my laptop in here. They're doing it in Logic, meaning that I don't have to write anything down. I can literally just open up Logic, select my part, and tell it to display guitar tab or guitar music. I can slow the tempo right down or whatever, so I can learn my parts. But they're parts that are made to be played like us. So I've first got to learn them, how they've been sort of composed so that they fit into the greater whole with better sort of context.
Yep.
But then once I've got them down to really sort of put my and for each of us put our own little stamp on how it all sounds. And so far, it's working really, really well. I've got every faith in Tom and Lester to provide some really, really quality skeletons of songs, or basically completely written songs. But all of this sort of means that the production of the next albums will be a lot more efficient, because the songs are composed in Logic. You can practice in Logic, and then we record everything here in this studio, so we can just place them where they're supposed to be in the track, and we can start mixing on them as we go. So we're hoping for a bit of a more efficient song pipeline as well, to get music out there a bit more frequently.
Wow. Okay. So if you mentioned, so if they had composed everything sort of like by themselves as a team on the Logic platform, how does that sort of differ to the previous two albums? Because I think you mentioned before that you sort of like you came up with your each individual parts before. So
yeah,
would that make a big difference to the overall sort of sound of the band?
We're hoping that it does, because we just really got to see how it's done playing with mono. They really had quite an impact on us, and we're composing our songs in a better way, I think, since having that experience. So prior to that, we would, there'd be certain chord progressions that we'd all jam on and create our own parts that we felt fit, towards the greater whole, and then, consolidated those into repeatable parts. And so the songs would start off as jam pieces and then get refined into songs, whereas this time they're being composed often by one or the other of Tom and Lester. So the parts are made to work together so much more from a musical standpoint.
Yeah.
When it's everybody contributing their own thing. I mean, I've been in bands where you get told exactly what to play, and then I went into Hiboux, which was exactly the opposite. Everyone gets to write their own parts, and now it's sort of like a happy medium of that, I feel, because there's a latitude for creativity within the parts that have been obviously written for us through interpretation and whatnot, and it really does sound like us when we play through them. So I think it's pretty unanimous that we're all quite happy with the new direction of the band musically. And really can't wait to start getting the new stuff out there, and, do some sets where we've got a mixture of migration stuff and the new stuff. And
fantastic.
It's good.
So how are you approaching the actual creation of the album? Are you recording anything yourself, or do you go to a studio?
Well, the last two albums have been the perfect way to try things out and see how they work. And the first pass of recording Command the Earth we recorded it live and attempted to sort of get something out of it, like what we did in the Moshcam video that you just saw. But I don't think we were really able to achieve that, and so we went off and recorded the parts again separately, and the production was sort of like, it went about a year too long, and at the end we really needed to get those songs out there because we played them a lot live, and it was just time to get the songs on CD and just move on. And so there was a lot of things in the production part of it that made it sound a little bit not like us, and certainly a lot of the songs we don't feel translated the real energy that we have live, because we're a live band.
Yeah.
It was hard to translate that onto CD, and so from all the lessons we learned off command, we applied to migrations, and I'm pretty happy to say I think we fixed all of the things that were wrong, and you can tell by the quality of that album. I'm really happy with migrations, but there's always room to get better. And to be honest, I mean, I've had to slow down a lot of the parts that Lester's written for me in the new stuff, because it's not a game anymore.
Right.
But it's good because it means that I have to push myself in order to play the parts, and then it will improve me as a musician as well, and I'm sure the other guys are feeling the same. And it's pretty immense, the sort of level of composition that can come out of one person. I'm pretty blown away. Really, really loving the new stuff. So, yeah, I think not only, I mean, the migrations, we fixed a lot of the problems that we sort of found in the production of the first album, but this time we're going for something hopefully even stronger, and to be able to play that live. I mean, we're all chomping at the bit to do more shows.
Awesome. Well, again, I'm just curious to sort of to hear a bit more about the whole recording process and actual creating, because like when you mentioned Logic, so if there is anyone out there who's unaware what Logic is, so Logic is a recording platform, sort of similar to like Pro Tools and Cubase and stuff. So does that mean that you guys are planning to record it yourself, or are you still gonna go into a studio and track some stuff in a studio?
Well, one of the things that I will answer that question, but I'll get there. One of the things that I personally found that gets in the way of making a really good record is when you spend a lot of money at a recording studio, often it takes longer to set up. There's stuff you didn't foresee, and what do you know? You don't have enough time, and you have to walk out of the recording studio going, wow, I just spent like a lot of money, and I have to be happy with the take that I got. And, it's a bit of a pain. So on migrations, I mean, I recorded the guitars twice for migrations, and I'm really glad that I got a second stab at it, because I got to record it after we'd toured it and knew the parts so much better. And we recorded it right here. Tom and I spent about 50 hours doing that. We just meet here at 8 o'clock each night, and our thing was not to leave the studio until we were absolutely happy, both of us, with every single part. And, within that, we've developed sort of like a way, an algorithm of doing it. And I think all of that learning is going to come out when we record here again. I mean, we've got a beautiful facility here right in the middle of the city. It's the best and the biggest studio that I've ever had access to in any band that I've been in. And to not utilize the space and all of the gear that we've got would be absolutely mad. So along with that, along with recording everything here, the mixing of the last album of Migrations, we started off by giving all of the recorded pieces, all the stems, to the guy that mixed the first Hiboux EP. He did a really awesome job on that, and so we asked him back. But the problem was, Migrations is such a massive album with so many layers and so many long songs with really weird long sections, got different tempos and time signatures, or within the same song often, and even just creating the click tracks that would then be used for the drums was a whole part of the pipeline that we never even entered into with the album before. So yeah, we're going to use this space. We're going to record everything here. Tom spent a year about a year or more mixing migrations in Reaper, believe it or not, and he used people that we had known and been involved with before as a band to advise on, the best ways to mix certain things. And in that year, Tom learned a hell of a lot, and we also think that shouldn't really be wasted time. I'm really happy with how he mixed migrations, and I can't wait to see what he would do now that he already knows all of that stuff. And so that only leaves mastering. This time we were so fussy, we got it mastered twice.
Oh, wow.
And it was so similar, and we all had to sit down and listen to the album a couple of times in the studio and decide and do double blind tests and all sorts. And oddly enough, we ended up using both masters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's a very slightly different master on the Spotify stuff, as opposed to the the Bandcamp and the YouTube stuff. And we felt that was a good choice because the mix that we put onto Spotify is far more sort of like appropriate to smaller speakers like phones and whatnot, mobile devices that people might be listening to the song on. But I mean, it's so slight. But we were really anal about getting every last detail right. So yeah, we paid for mastering 2 times and used one of. Well, we did use 2, but predominantly we used one of them. So this time for this new album that we're writing now, I mean, I'm really keen to see what Tom can do mastering wise, but not just doing it blind or just doing YouTube video tutorials, but actually going to the same audio engineers that he used as technical advisors when he was mixing migrations. And I think the importance with that is if you're the guy with the musical idea or you're one of the ones in the band, you're going to know so much better how it should sound. If you've been on tour doing those songs, you've been involved in the writing of the songs from its inception, the technology is just a formality that you can outsource to people by asking questions. And I think that worked perfectly with Tom, because although we gave the other guy, the professional mixer guy, all the stems way early on, let him do a song or 2. Although technically he's brilliant, the other side of it was, he's on paid time, and he also hasn't been around for any of the inception of these really long, complex songs. So it was difficult for someone external to the band to really realise what we wanted to hear and have it sound like. And I think if we can sort of stick to that and do recording, mixing and mastering all in-house, makes it heaps cheaper, but it also should be more true to the sound that we really want to get out there. We won't have to settle with something that we, no more studio time left, that's it. You've got to be happy with that. We just don't even operate that way,
And I'm so happy to hear that, because I think a lot of bands are so sort of focused on the fact is, we need to go to a studio, like we need to have this whole big experience and be professional, because, going to a professional studio. But you guys, again, have sort of approached it the other way, and you've accumulated this knowledge and also like realized the fact that, if we want to be as creative as possible and not settle for like a mediocre or at least not the perfect take, then if we can do it ourselves, if we can set it up at home here or catch up at 8 o'clock at night and just smash it out, then you don't need to compromise, but you just need to learn first.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
which is one of the things that made migrations take so long. But like now we have that.
Exactly.
Now we know
those
things.
Yeah, it's the same as it's the same as anything else. It's the same as learning, like you said, like you had to learn to play some harder parts now and improve as a musician. It's the same, like you just need to throw yourself out there and learn some more stuff. And again, it'll also broaden your horizon as a musician, even though it is like a different trade. But you get to understand the audio side of things. You get to learn about frequencies and plugins and layers and
and I think that's really beneficial in any industry or anywhere you're working or in any endeavor, really, is if you can, try and learn about all of the components of what you're doing. And you're gonna give better data to the next person along the line. You're gonna have a better overview of the whole product. And God damn it, you're not going to be spending gazillions of dollars a day in a professional studio.
Yeah.
When, to be honest with you, the gear that we've got in this studio, the size of the space and the soundproofing of the space, I mean, we've got a better situation recording wise than a lot of the famous bands that you've heard of from the 70s and 80s. Like, we've got it all right here. And I think we'd be mad not to use it, especially after cutting our teeth. I mean, the best way to learn to do something is to do it wrong first, and we've made a lot of mistakes with production, and I mean, it's just the way to learn. So, but yeah, definitely cheaper and definitely more true to our sound. That's the goal.
Yeah, it's also it's actually fun now, sort of looking at everything that's available online. You can actually sit at home. You can record as you guys are doing. Like, you can record everything yourself and save all that money having to go into a big studio. But then you can actually grab all the stems and you can send them off to like an A-class producer and pay a little bit extra to get him to mix it. And then all of us
money to do that because you
exactly
haven't wasted it all on production.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tom, we've been talking a little bit about that as well, and Tom actually started a dialogue with the guy who mixed Rave Tapes by Mogwai.
Oh wow!
Which is cool because, maybe we will have some money left over to fling it about with things like that and really up the quality. So I mean, we're serious about making something that's world class this time, and we're just not going to stop trying to do that. There's enough music. I mean, we could keep pumping out lots and lots of songs, but we want to do it right, and apply the lessons that we've learned. One other interesting discussion we had the other night was about instead of releasing albums, to release tracks, and one of the reasons would be there's different production techniques or things that we can try over and over again. Each iteration, like each song, we can learn something new rather than having to make all those decisions and then go, right, that's a whole album now. We've made that decision for these 10 songs or whatever, and to sort of evolve a little bit and maybe do smaller releases that have a bit more frequency of release online as well. But that, I mean, it was just an idea. It also enables us to pair more artwork with the music, which I think is really important. A lot of the bands that have beautiful artwork with them, like, to me, it's like a whole package. It's music and art together purposefully. We were fortunate to have the privilege of supporting Alceste from France when they came out to New Zealand a couple of years ago as well, and they were really helpful in helping us sort of figure out what to do next as far as how to get better quality and all that sort of stuff. And why did I mention Alceste?
Did they do something? Did they open your eyes as well to how they're operating?
Well, they did, yeah, because they only had 4 guys on stage, but it had a lot of synths and a lot of other stuff in it. I mean, we've got 5 guys on stage, and we've got a lot of instruments, so there's not really anything we need to sequence. But just especially for another side project that I'm doing, the way that Nage explained how they did it, is basically to have the drummer hearing the click track. And drumming off of that, and the band members just interacting off of him as you would normally, but that means that the songs are able to have other instruments added into them automatically to make it bigger. And I've seen a lot of concerts in my life, but Alceste playing at San Fran it just blew my mind how huge they sounded, and so of course I had to pick their brains about it afterwards. They were really nice guys, but playing. Like, the good thing about New Zealand is because it's so small, a big international band will come by and you actually have quite a feasible chance, a shot of playing with them. There's a lot of guys that I know in bands here that have been able to support their favourite bands over the years, and it's just one great advantage of being in New Zealand that I certainly never found in Australia. Right.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
Because when you play with acts like that, you can't help it. You're standing there and watching them do their thing. And, if a band's been on the road for 20 years, I mean, you're going to notice something. And we really did with Mono, with Alceste as well. But, yeah, all of those Well, there's been more Brian Jonestown Massacre, a bunch of other bands, but the point is to try and learn from all of them, because they've all got so much live experience that just blows us out of the water. So, yeah.
So what was it specifically about mono that sort of really made a big mark or really made a big difference?
What? Sorry.
So what was it about mono that really just made that massive difference?
Well, a couple of things. Like when we were sitting around at the sound check for both nights, we just sat there and watched and listened. And when you break it down to just the raw instruments, as they were sound checking, like the bass and the drums and everything, like they've got the same room, they've got the same sound desk, they've got the same PA speakers, but the quality level of the tones and the sounds that they were getting out of there were just massive. And we were sort of thinking, well, we've got really similar gear. Like, how do we make our individual tones sound that quality, and then the other side of it was like during the concert, I mean, mono has a way of just like mesmerizing you so that you're so focused in on what they're doing, your feet are floating off the ground. And I think one of the things that contributes to that is the fact that when they play a song, they're so unified in the way that they compose their stuff that, like one big note is like the whole band playing different components of a chord. And it's just really, really powerful. We want to try and emulate that. And I mean, that's changed the way we're writing our music. I think it can only be a good thing.
But so is that more, or not more, but is that predominantly gear related? So do you guys have to sort of tweak your gears and your plugins and pedals a bit?
Well, I mean, it's not for lack of trying in that department. We've all over the years like acquired some really, really top notch gear. From end to end, we've all got some really nice gear now, but it's how to use it the most effectively.
Yep.
It's not all just a money sport. Oh well, if we had the money to buy that, we could sound. It's not that. It's years and years of them playing live and just knowing how to get the best out of their sound, and also using the same sound guy all the time. It's something we did. We started off early when we were first gigging. We met a guy at Valhalla one night called Sam Shellcrass, and he just did an incredible job on stage, the on-stage mix and front of house. And so right after the gig, I just went over to him and said, there's my number. You're our sound guy. And when you're doing a tour or something like that, you bring your own sound guy. I mean, one night, 5 nights in a row, he'd had to deal with different mixers and all kinds of crappy stuff. But he always pulled off a great on-stage mix and a great front of house mix. And I mean, that's one thing, is using the same sound guy. But I think it's also time. If you're a team that's been working together for that long, you're just going to slowly get better at your stuff. It's just a matter of throwing hours and hours and hours at it. So yeah, as a team, with Sam, we've been able to assure a certain level of quality with each gig and assure that we can hear each other on stage and everything. That's definitely a big part of it. But yeah, it's not just the gear. It's time spent using the gear, and I'm talking in years of gigs and albums, and just you're never going to find a shortcut that someone can tell you that all of a sudden you're going to sound like that. You just have to keep working at it, and there's no other way. But that's the silver lining. Put the work in, and you do get that back.
Yeah. But in regards to time as well, like how much time are you guys spending on the band? I'm assuming you all got jobs on the side, and some might have families or something like that. But how much time are you investing into the band?
Well, at the moment, I'm sort of having to rehearse myself about 3 or 4 times a week outside of the once a week sort of writing session that we have. And it's easy to do because, like I said, we've got everything in Logic, so you can sort of open your laptop and just start playing whenever. During lockdown, Lester and Tom put many, many hours into this stuff, and it shows. There's a lot of thought being put into the tiniest of details in these compositions. So, I guess that's one positive benefit of the lockdown was the amount of time just with nowhere to be, that two of the guys in the band could really just knuckle down. And I'm not sure about everyone else in the band, but honestly, this new stuff's pretty challenging. I couldn't not spend a few days a week on it. Like, I have to. I've got to get better at what I do to even play some of these parts fluidly, and I'm real happy with that. That's cool. That's good. Keep pushing. Otherwise, if you're not trying to expand or trying to grow, trying to get better, then it gets boring. But we've always been about pushing the envelope and getting better at what we do.
And I'm assuming that comes down to the whole gear thing you were talking about earlier as well. So sort of try and play around getting a better tone, getting a better sort of audio quality as well.
Yeah. So much of that. I went through about 5 years of trying out all kinds of different pedals for every single effect, and combining them, stacking them, putting them in different orders, and researching on YouTube just different guitarists explaining how they set up their rig, and trying all of those. And I mean, I've got all the pedals that I could ever need now. I think it's just I've got to improve the tone, and hearing Migrations, the fact that it was so clear really made me think, okay, this is what I can fix, this is what I can change. And so I used to come in before we started writing. I'd come in for 4 or 5 hours at a time and literally just stand there in front of my amp tweaking settings. I'm using a completely different guitar this time. It's a new guitar to me. It was given to me by a friend. It's a Jackson. I'd never normally go out there and buy a Jackson, but this thing is it's matte black, and it's got a beautiful fingerboard on it. It's got a big break angle, so it has a lot more sustain, much like a Les Paul, which is important for a lot of the parts that I'm playing. It's got 26 gazillion frets on it, so there's enough room to do all the crap that Les was getting me to do. And it sounds amazing. So each guitar has its own kind of tone and sound as well, and so I've brought the big muff back into the overdrive, into the fuzz, trying to sort of carve out a newer, better sounding tone than I had on Migrations. Still me, but just more powerful. There's always stuff to refine. I mean, I used to think that was a real wanky thing to do, was muck about with pedals. It's like, well, can you play or not? But then Hiboux was actually the first band after many bands that I've been in where I actually started to pay attention to tone and go, right, well, what if I wanted to sound a little bit like this guy, a little bit like that guy, all the classics. And then, so you mix in those elements and come out with something that's yours, but it's influenced by others. I feel I've sort of got that, but there's room to get it better for sure. So yeah, that's part of it. Not only learning the songs, but really thrashing around with your gear until you've got a sound that you really like. That's definitely one thing that Mono showed us in practice, is just each individual instrument having its own sound really perfected, really contributes to the whole really well.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes it's also difficult to actually see someone who's got this really cool tone on the album to have that sort of similar tone live, because that's two completely different environments.
It sort of, in a lot of cases, you're right, Stefan, but today you're wrong, mate.
Hey,
no. What I'm saying is, here's a good example. On command, I brought my guitar to the studio where we were recording it, played through a different head, played through different pedals, played through different cab, all to get it sounding right for the recording on the day. But it did not sound like me, and it certainly wasn't the tone that I'd spent a long time developing. And so with Migrations, instead of moving any of the gear, we literally just where the gear, we come into the studio and our gear's just set up. That's where we put the mics, and that's where we jam every week. And that's it's comfort zone, but it's also my actual gear that sounds just like I sound live. And so I think the sound, the tones on Migrations it's all the same pedals. Literally a microphone in front of my cab, same gear. So, I would hope that our live performances outclass the albums, and I feel that they do. I feel that, like I said before, we're definitely a live band. But as far as like a difference in sound, at least for my gear, like honestly, I feel like Migrations was the most faithful reinterpretation of my sound that we've had so far. And wow. The further we go, the closer I want that to be, so that at least it's a familiar sound when you're playing to what people have been hearing.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. I think it might be because like I sometimes also connected to people that are sharing backline, or if you have like as you mentioned yourself, you got different sound techs, you got different sound guys. Unless you have your own, who knows exactly what sort of sound and image you're after.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Always, and we pay him for first thing. Like he gets paid on the night. Like he's worth every penny. We took him on tour. He did 3 times the amount of work he should have. He's great, but there's using the same sound guy all the time does help for sure, because we've made that mistake a few times, or we've been in situations where we haven't been able to bring Sam, and it's just one of the things that we need to tick off. We need to have our sound guy there.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you're paying him every night. Is that out of your own pocket, or are you getting paid when you're gigging, or sort of how does the business side of things work?
Well, Here in Wellington, it's basically you organise the gig with the venue owner. They get everything from the bar, and you get everything from the door. Okay. And so generally, what comes through the door is enough to pay the sound guy, and whether or not we have anything left over. I mean, we're often paying a lighting guy as well. If it's a big show, I spent a month with a good friend who's a lighting tech. Designing a bespoke light show for one of the gigs we had at San Fran, because it's worth doing. It's got to be, for me, it's got to be a visceral experience. It's got to be sound and vision, and you have to be absorbed in it. So he'd be the same price as the sound guy, but I don't really care if we don't have any money left over for that. In fact, if we didn't have any money to pay for it, I'd find a way to pay myself, because. And I have done in the past. It's important. It's really, really important to. I think in this part of being an Hiboux as well. Obviously, we're doing a lot less gigs, but when we do them, they've got to be a special night in some way, And so you've got to add all the things, and it's not a money making venture. We all have jobs. We're not here to make money out of our crowds. We're just here to do music because we like doing music, and use the money we make on the door to create an awesome show. Really not concerned with profit side of it.
Yeah.
It's not the point of it. It's the great thing about having something like Bandcamp, a platform like Bandcamp. You can produce everything yourself and get it out to the world, and it's not gone through any other hands. That's really cool, being able to do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not money.
Good. All right. So in regards to ambitions and stuff, where do you see the band being in, say, 5 years?
Wow. Well, that's a good question, especially in today's world.
It was very, very, very uncertain, isn't it?
It really is. We were having a chat out on the balcony the other night about it, about what sort of things can we throw up there on the whiteboard to achieve? And it pretty much comes down to playing more shows overseas, because what's the pinnacle of for us? What's the pinnacle of playing in New Zealand? It's like playing with bands that we really love, like both local but overseas bands as well. And how do we improve on that? Well, I mean, I've always wanted to take us to the Dunk Festival in Belgium, because I think it would be incredibly receptive to what we do. Obviously, that's off the cards for the next however long. But I would certainly like to go with a band that we know, a bigger band that we know in some capacity, and possibly share some dates with them overseas, because the live show is what gets people to listen to the music. It's about the live experience. It's not really about chucking the CD on, to me. So you've got to get out there. So yeah, I would really, really hope that in 5 years, say COVID's not a factor, I'd love to say that, yes, we've played Dunk Festival a couple of times and we went really well. And, you know, now we've got lots and lots more people listening to our music. I think that's probably the goal. The more people to listen to it, actually really enjoy it, the better. None of these goals are related to money in any way. I mean, it's not a realistic expectation to make enough money out of your music to live off if you're doing it the way we are. You know, if you all of a sudden go, right, well, music's my money source, then you have to make a lot of compromises to what you're doing, and then to me it just would become not worth it. You know, I'd rather it be what I want it to be creatively, and the only way to control that is to not rely on it for money.
Yeah.
You know, if it came to us getting offered 3 months of gigs in Europe or something on a crazy tour, and they were going to pay our expenses and whatnot, you know, sure, great, but I would never look to it as a thing that, you know, is going to be my one and only way of earning money, and not have the music turn to shit as a result.
Well, I suppose in your case, because I mean, you guys are by far one of the better cases when it comes to sort of like how you got the infrastructure sorted, because you can record everything yourself, because you have that sort of artistic and also like the technical control over producing and writing songs. It gives you sort of an edge there because you can do it at a much, much lower cost and still sustain a very high quality. So ultimately, and the reason why I'm saying, like, in regards to sort of money and stuff, so definitely if you keep playing live and say, let's take COVID out of the equation and say in a year's time or 18 months or something, there's a vaccine and everybody can travel freely again, or blah, blah, whatever. But so say you can fly over and play shows in Europe, you can go to Australia or Southeast Asia, or wherever you sort of want to travel. But by doing that and creating more content, recording songs at home and stuff, I think you can see a lot of the streaming platforms, whether you like them or not, is actually an option for you to have a passive income. So if you can build your audience and have more people listening to your music, because let's face it, there's going to be far more people that never see you live than they will stream your music.
Absolutely, but I mean, $1,700 for 55 million streams it's not a living.
Of course. But again, it is still, there is still other avenues as well. Like there's obviously ways of creating additional content and stuff. Like pretty much what I'm trying to say is you don't need to give up you don't need to sell your soul for it to be like a full-time thing, or for you to dedicate more time into it.
I certainly think that middle ground is achievable. You know, bands like Mogwai and Mono and many Analysis, many others, like, we really felt with Mono that they had all of the enthusiasm and all of the unadulterated creativity that they would have had when they started. They just really love what they're doing, and it's their job. And you look at their tour schedule, and they play every single night for like a month, like in all different countries. Like they work really, really hard. But you know, like when you've been to one of their gigs, you can see why they keep going back. And so yeah, I'm sure that is achievable in some way. One thing that we haven't achieved yet, which I personally would be really keen on, is to start perhaps licensing music out to movie soundtracks or even parts of them, because they sort of lend themselves quite well to it. I'm actually working on the grading of a short film for a friend of mine at the moment, and one of the segues off Migrations, one of the little short 2-minute sort of segue tracks off Migrations, is the song for the intro to the film. And it's really a sinister kind of beginning, and it works really well. And so, I mean, I would certainly hope as well that in 5 years we'd manage to get some success in having people, license out our music for movies and stuff. I mean, it's the perfect thing. It tries to describe emotion and things without any words. So, you know, you can chuck it on the background of the scene and you've got some instant atmosphere.
Yeah, you know? It's funny you say it, because that's actually one of the things I've written down here, sort of in regards to like how you guys not necessarily started the instrumental band, but obviously ended up where you are now. Because the instrumental music, when you listen to it, like you kind of have to make up all your emotions yourself, all your sort of like the images in your head, because you got no one sort of telling you, you got no lyrics to sort of seek behind it. So first of all, so I've got a question in regards to like how you guys decided to do the instrumental part. But then at the same time, again, I'd love to hear more about that, the licensing idea as well, because that's something I think would suit that music extremely well.
Yeah, there was a band from Melbourne, probably nearly 10 years ago now. I don't know. They wrote these songs. They had lyrics, but they were just, I don't know, they were really movie soundtrack type songs. And I remember being in Los Angeles in 2012, going past one of the major venues there, seeing their name on the front of the building, and I was like, whoa, that band from Melbourne's playing there tonight. What the hell? I haven't heard from them in ages, and what had happened is that they'd made enough sort of money and sort of fame off their movie soundtracks to then be able to go and play lots and lots of places in the world and pack out big venues. I mean, that's a really good way to get there, I feel. But yeah, that's definitely something I'd love to see happen, and I would jump on any opportunity to have that happen. So I'm sure it's just a matter of time.
But so how did you guys start? So when you guys made this band and you sort of decided like we're going to do this as an instrumental band, was that a sort of collaborative decision, or how did that come about?
Well, the band did form 1 year before I joined. So there
I remember saying that. Yeah,
that kind of philosophy and stuff, I guess, was left up to them. But the reason that I joined was, and like everyone else in the band, we've been in lots of other bands. 3 of us have been singers in lots of other bands, and I don't know. I guess I'd been strumming an acoustic and singing a lot as a kid growing up, and I wanted to get better at guitar. And so one band I was just a guitarist in, and then this band I thought, well, this is the ultimate way to try and get better at guitar is to try and convey all of that emotion that a song with lyrics might have, but without any. And certainly with the classical influence of Lester and Tom, I think we're able to tell stories. And like you said before, leave the listener's imagination wide open. It's a far more intimate experience to them to have the music bring up certain memories in their minds rather than being told what the song's about. Make it more your own, like for the listener. I think that really helps. I mean, certainly after gigs, we get a lot of people coming up to us saying, "Oh, I was just sort of standing there thinking about stuff." I'm like, well, yeah, we want to draw you into this trance-like state live and get you into that mind state, because one of the most incredible experiences in my life is to have that happen when you're watching a band that's really blowing you away. I mean, there's nothing like it. I'll go and see 100 bands to try and get that feeling back, and being part of being able to create that environment for other listeners is absolutely brilliant. It's a good vibe to spread. It's a good thing to shoot for, and I love it when it happens. People that have obviously gone into a world of thought during the gig and then come out and go, oh wow, that was great, and it's all their own realization. It's really satisfying. I think that's probably the best thing about it is to connect with people on a level that you really can't know any other way. I'm curious to also hear a bit more about sort of like the instrumental scene in general, because I'm not too familiar with all instrumental bands. So you mentioned earlier, say for instance, like if you guys had to go on tour, well, like you'd be great to go on tour with another band. So would that be another instrumental band, or could you still play with, say supporting a band that had a singer, or vice versa? Well, certainly on a smaller scale, with local gigs, we'd put on a 3-band night, and we've done, quite a few in the past where we've had, 3 instrumental bands, and we might all be slightly different styles, but we're 3 instrumental bands. And, good friends of mine will tell me what I can fix. And a couple of friends had said at that time, it'd be interesting to have a bit more variety in the shows. And so we started to do gigs with bands of differing genres, but still close enough for obviously, the audience to get into the whole night. But, they would have seen a band where there was a singer and a band where there's just two guys, and then the band where there's us, and gone, oh, I saw three really different bands tonight. We found that mixing it up really helps people enjoy the night more, because, I think if you can just get people in there, they're going to enjoy the music. So, people that are interested in other kinds of music go and see their friends' bands who are playing with us, and then, we've got them locked in the room, and then we're going to make sure that they, but honestly, that's all we need is just that time to try and do our best to impress people and hopefully have them like what we do. I think that's a lot more accessible with a mixed lineup than it is with three sort of similar style bands. So obviously, it'd be nice to play with a big international band, do a bunch of dates in Europe or something. And I don't think it would particularly matter whether they were similar to us or not. It'd be, it'd just be amazing to do. But certainly on a local level, mixing it up really, really helps.
So out of any of sort of the international bands you brought up yourself, like if you were to go on to support any big international band, like would you have a favorite, or is there someone that stands out and say, wow, that would be so cool, man, if we could support these guys?
Well, I mean, there's a lot, and it sort of differs for all of us, but I guess what brings us together is bands that we have spent time with, like Alcest and like Mono, that are sort of heroes of ours and people we can learn a lot from. There's loads of other bands that I would love to tour with. I mean, there's Pelican. The list is really, really endless. But I think well, actually, all of us in the band have different kind of influences in our music. Really, it's sort of like a trampoline. It's getting stretched from all corners, and everyone's trying to put their own stamp on it, and it gives it some kind of tension, which works.
That's good.
So
That's
I'm
good.
sure that answer would be different for all of us, but the ones that would definitely bring us together would be the ones that we've played with, and certainly Mogwai, if we ever got the chance. If they came out to New Zealand again, we would all be just practicing like mad and trying to network our way into playing with them, because they really set a good standard in a lot of ways for the things that we're trying to do, in the same way that Mogwai does. But those kind of bands are definitely they're good for all of us.
Yep. And in regards to sort of like the networking aspect, though, you mentioned yourself, I usually have that all written down as well. Yeah, that's so in regards to how do you go out and create connections yourself? Like, how do you go out and obviously as a do-it-yourself band now, if you like, you got the gig with Mono, you got the gig with Alcest. Say for instance, if you wanted to go over to Belgium and play at that Dunk, was it Dunk Fest or something?
Dunk Festival, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you sit down and go over and get those contacts? Like, is there one person in the band who is like the promoter guy, and another one who is the accountant, and one who is the songwriter? And how does all the logistics work?
Yeah, we do split it up a little bit. As far as like figuring out how to network stuff, I mean, I guess the only reason I ended up in the band was that I was seeing Jacob from Nelson. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jacob. Been around for about 20 years, and they've been really successful in Europe, post-rock wise. What was I going to say? What was the question?
It was sort of with regards to the like to the networking aspect, and like who's sort of setting up like connecting the dots, for you guys to pick up these gigs now and in the future.
Well, the other guys in the band have lived in Wellington, if not all of their lives, most of their lives. I've only been here, since 2013. So it started off with, obviously, especially one of the other guys in the band, the bass player, is really connected to a lot of the music people here in Wellington, and a lot of gigs come to him. A lot of gigs come to me as well. But I guess we split the tasks off. But I think what really amped up me making connections is playing gigs with local bands, getting to know them. There's a really good sense of camaraderie here amongst the musicians in Wellington that I've found anyway. My only path has been awesome. I've met some great people. And you end up getting asked to do all sorts of things through that. Recently as well, we got put on a compilation CD or a double CD compilation thing by Thousand Arms Music out of the United States. There's a guy called David Ziedler who's heavily involved with the the admin side of the Dunk Festival, and he just randomly picked from the Good Mountain to be on one of those compilations a few years ago, and then so a couple of weeks ago we got put on one of the next ones with one of the songs off Migrations, which was really cool. So, and he actually said to us, if you want to play Dunk Festival, talk to me and I will do your PR for it, no problem. Wow. So it leaves the ball in our court as to, especially Lester with his two kids and, different kind of expenses going on, leaves the ball in our court. Like, if we want to do it, it's there, A good friend of mine, the guy that set up our Moshcam video in Sydney, he knows he's just taken photos of bands as live or press kits like so many times a week for the last 15 years. Just knows a lot of people in the industry. He's also quite close to the guys in We Lost the Sea. I've actually flown to Australia because I'm a photographer as well. He got me into the pit for Russian Circles, We Lost the Sea, and Tangled Thoughts of Leaving, who are from Perth. And they're very well liked in the whole Dunk Festival scene. So that's another avenue as well. But it really does take time on the ground doing gigs and just continuing to do what you love to do that you end up with these kind of connections. I spent a year organising the main tour for Migrations. It was a long time to spend, but in that time I got to find out who are the local bands that are well liked in the towns that we're on our list. I got to meet the venue owners, over the phone, organising stuff. We were showing great hospitality at each of the venues we played. We got to play with some incredible musicians and bands who've become friends. And it's just a matter of getting out there and doing things, and then everything else comes along.
Yeah, but that's mainly you who's been doing that part of the business.
Well, I do. Well, it's a combination. Like for that tour, I organised it. For other gigs and tours, Duncan will organise stuff. It's mainly just us two, but I do all the online stuff for the band. So like with the artwork for both albums that I've been involved with, I've been able to commission those artworks off artists that I've met. And to create the website and the T-shirts and the backstage passes and the business cards and the whatever else you need, merch and stuff. I'm sort of behind that PR side of it. And then Lester's sort of like sitting on the money, So yeah, we all do have our different bits and pieces, but it was really great actually when we did the two shows with Mono, just how well everything worked. Everyone helped in their own way, and as we really got those two gigs done as a team, because we had to play a show in Wellington and then drive up overnight in the tour van and arrive just in time for sound check in Auckland, and kind of there was a lot of logistics going on, and I felt like that was a really good even spread of responsibilities, and everyone really came through, and it was cool. So we can keep on that sort of wicket. I'm sure tours will be a lot easier, as we go.
Yeah, I suppose again the logistics in New Zealand is probably slightly better than they are in Australia with the insane distances here, man.
Yeah,
but that's again where Europe comes in super handy, man. You can drive for probably less than it is between Wellington and Auckland. You'll be in another country.
Yeah, I know. I love Europe for that, and I mean I've lived over there. Tom's lived over there. Duncan spent a lot of time there. Lester's spent a bunch of time there. Declan's originally from England. I mean, we'd definitely love to do some European stuff. I mean, I can't think of anything more fun than jumping in a tour and going around Europe, playing different venues every night, meeting people, playing great shows. I mean, hell yeah, bring it on.
Yeah. Well, it sounds sort of like with your networking skills, it sounds like something like that could be happening, especially if you already have sort of some fingers in the pie in Belgium there. Yeah,
we'll just have to save our pennies and be ready financially to do something like that. That's probably the only thing that would hold us back. But if we knew far enough ahead, I'm sure, we'd make it a priority and it'd happen. So, yeah, ask me again in 5 years, but I really hope by that stage I've got those answers for you and say, yeah, we've done this and we've done that. I've got no intention of stopping making music, and I'm sure the other guys don't either. This is the longest time I've been in one band, and so when you're doing a thing for that long, it'd be a shame to finish it and just go away and start something else. I mean, sure, I'd be better at lots of things, but what we've got going on, I feel like we can really refine, and it takes those years of experience together as a team to get to that point. So it's good that the mono shows actually really saved the band, because Lester wasn't really particularly keen in carrying on after Migrations was released. He's got 2 boys and different priorities and whatnot, but I mean, one thing remains, that he just can't help himself. He loves music and he's really, really good at it. And so when we played with mono, it inspired him to want to do this next album and to knuckle down during lockdown. Like, yeah, those two shows really did a lot for us as far as like inspiring us to keep going and try and keep pushing it.
Yeah, wicked. So and when did you play with mono? How long ago is that?
It was in late March or something like that. It was. I think the 2 gigs that we played were literally about 5 days before lockdown began.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's only a couple of months ago. Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was like February or March, something like that. It was earlier on in the year. And, we were super lucky to be able to play with a band like that and then have everything shut down and know that, whoa, if that happened just a week earlier or 2 weeks earlier, we would have missed out on that, and who knows if we ever would have got that opportunity again. So, yeah, we were super lucky.
Yeah, and again, like, who knows if the band would still have been around. Like, if you're saying he had thoughts about maybe leaving or maybe, giving up or something, yeah.
I don't think the band would have been around, to be honest. I think because he was pretty dead set on that for about 6 months at least, and had like formally announced it to the band, and we were like, okay, well, cool. So we'll release Migrations and we'll do some shows. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'll do the shows with you, but that's all I really want to commit to. And so, yeah, I guess we're all sort of mentally prepared for it to wind down, but to have that sort of come back and, have a whole new approach and heaps of new stuff to learn and chew on and get better at in the next album has been the most awesome thing, and we can definitely thank the influence of mono for that.
Wow, that's actually a really, really cool story, man. So it's like how mono and COVID saved the band pretty much.
Yeah, fantastic. How things turn out.
Oh, it is. But I mean, I've heard so many crazy stories about how this whole lockdown thing has just shifted people's mindset. A lot of people, sort of sit at home and complain about, we can't do anything. But the ones that sort of think a little bit outside the box and get a little bit smart about it, it's like, hey, I've got all this time now. Why don't I try and find something cool too?
Yeah, it's a great space for creativity. There was 6 weeks where, and it's been a lot longer in other countries, but there was 6 weeks where, you couldn't really sort of leave the house unless you were going grocery shopping or whatnot. And so, you can either moan about it or you can write an album. And that's what the guys did. We're proud of them for doing that, because, it was also, I guess, for Lester, certainly because he's the only one in the band that has children, he got to spend so much more time with them. But, I mean, across the world and people that you know and people that you don't know, it's interesting to see what people do when they've got that much time and nowhere to be, what's left in life? Like, you've got to figure out stuff that you enjoy and do that.
Yeah.
And some people chose to goof off, and other people chose to be creative and be productive, and each to their own. But I think that's a really interesting test. Is what would you do if you didn't have to be anywhere for 6 weeks and you didn't have to worry about work? What would you do with your time? I think it's a good question for any of us, really, because if you're not doing the step and repeat machine of getting up for work and going to the job and blah blah blah, if you take that distraction out, like, what is your goal? Why are you here? Are you here to make a difference? Do you have a thing to say before you die? Or do you not care? And all of us are different, but I think we're going to sort of, once we are able to look back on COVID, it'll be clear like what it really did for us as humans.
And as a band, I suppose.
Well, yes, as humans in a band.
Yeah. But I think you're absolutely right. I actually had a guy on one of the first shows who said that if someone actually said had asked him, said, would you rather, for the next 6 weeks, would you rather just go about your business, do your work, do whatever you've been doing for the last couple of years, or take six weeks off and not having to work, but you stay at home with your kids? I'd be like, I'd probably just go to work because that's what I'm used to. But now, because you don't have the choice, you have to be at home. He said, that experience is just so insane. So
it's a mental shift, isn't it?
It is, and it was like you really get to appreciate stuff that you probably never thought was an option. Like, for especially for me as well. Like, again, I've got three little kids, and for me to sort of I only spent about a couple of weeks, and then I started doing this. But after the first couple of weeks, it was like you just find out, like, whoa, it's actually crazy to see them from when they wake up till they go to bed, and then eventually it goes like, yeah, okay, now it's a little bit too much.
I just gotta go into work to check on something.
Yeah, I just gotta go and call someone up in New Zealand or something. But at the same time, like for me, for instance, just to give you a different perspective here, like the passion for me has, like, to actually sit here and talk to people and hear people's stories have just grown so much over the last couple of months. And again, for, like, if I could keep doing that, and eventually, I don't know, maybe get a couple of sponsors or something, someone that could throw some money out after the show or something, that would allow me to do it full time. And I would love to do that and go out to more gigs, get more bands on, and just help, sharing the love. Is that would be another ambition, another goal eventually.
Nice. Well, maybe in 5 years, if you're still doing it, we can have another interview, and I can ask you, how did you go?
I can come and check you guys out in Belgium, man. I'd love to go over there, man. Well, again, as we spoke about just before we went live, so I'm from Denmark originally. So again, I've got big connections, or big, I've got 1 foot in Australia and 1 foot in Denmark. So we obviously do go back to Europe quite regularly, or would like to whenever this COVID stuff sort of allows us to, but yeah, like, so that's another thing. I would love to be able to take bands that would want to go to Europe and go over and maybe help out, getting some connections set up over there eventually as well.
That's awesome. I mean, you're going to build up just through doing this show. You're going to build up a lot of contacts, and it might just be the way forward. Eventually, it might become obvious that's something you have to do. In a non-COVID world, I'm sure it's totally feasible.
Yeah, and again, it's something that is, it's also mind blowing to me, like how much talent is out there, because again, I've been exposed to all these crazy bands that I would never have found myself.
Popularity is definitely not a yardstick for success.
No,
or a yardstick for how good a musician is. I mean, in Wellington, I've come from, I've lived in London, I've lived in Sydney, lots of people. But here in Wellington, there's 180,000 people in the immediate sort of Wellington suburban area. And in Greater Wellington, there's about 300,000, something like that. And what I have to say I've been incredibly impressed by the whole time I've been here is within that tiny amount of people, just how much incredibly top shelf music talent there is. It's crazy. There's so many musicians here that are really, really good, and just, you know, they might not be chasing fame or anything like that, but they just have to do music. And it's a really good ratio of just mad talent here in Wellington. So, it's been good to meet other musicians by playing shows with them. But it's like what you're discovering in the podcast. I mean, there's just so much musical talent that if you don't go searching for it, you might not see.
Exactly. And yeah, like I've got another Wellington band coming up in a couple of weeks, a band called Mojo Alice. I think they're from Wellington as well. I came across a guy, a friend of mine in Perth introduced me to a band called Shepherd's Rain. They're more playing some more like full on metal stuff, but I think they're from Wellington as well. Samoan band.
Oh, right. Yeah. I think metal's probably the most well-liked genre here in New Zealand. There's a lot of metal going on. There's a lot. So, I mean, I could go on with a massive list of bands that I'd recommend that you interview from Wellington that I personally know people from.
I'd love to hear from them.
There's some great musicians here that are doing some really, really cool stuff. So, yeah, it's a treasure trove of music here for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. I deliberately found I've got an Alien Weaponry T-shirt here. You know, there's some cool boys from New Zealand as well there.
Yeah, who just managed to pull it off well.
They've done incredibly well. Yeah,
they have. It's sort of like the speed at which they got famous is sort of like almost up there with Silverchair sort of thing. You know, they just really just went boom. But I love hearing the trio with metal. It's a great mix. And I hope they continue to smash it around the world, and we hopefully see a bit more of that. It's a really cool mix, I think.
They actually had a massive video made in Denmark, in Copenhagen. They played the biggest stage on a metal festival called Copenhagen. And you know, because usually they start out by doing a haka and stuff, you know, that the war dance there. I think they had some local Maori guys who lived in like somewhere around Scandinavia, so who came over and put on this big show. So this got actually filmed. So this got filmed and got broadcasted on national TV. So they got huge exposure there. Huge exposure.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's again, like I said, like they also have something that makes them very unique. Not only are they very young, they also have, you know, they're a bunch of kids. They're also a trio, which is a huge sound for a trio. But then, they sing in you know, in Maui. So it's
it's great. It's great. People have said to me that you know that's been done before here, blah blah blah. But I'm just glad to see it get a bit of traction around the world, and you know, people actually hear how cool it sounds. It works.
And in that format again, well, it's quite unique because they are just three young boys.
Yeah, it's the whole Nirvana thing, you know.
Yeah, kind of.
That's such a massive sound for those three people. It's cool. Like, I don't know, I've always kind of tried to form bands that have four members for various reasons. And when I hear bands like Alien Weaponry and like Cog and like other three pieces that sound gigantic, and Magnus in Sydney as well, they just sound getting that massive sound with three people always pretty much blows me away, because if I had the choice, I'd always have two guitarists and a bass player and a drummer as a bass standard. You know, for various reasons, the kind of music that I want to make. And so when I hear bands making music that I really love that's just done with three people, it's like, wow, okay. You guys are all really earning your spot there, aren't you?
Actually, another fun approach here as well. Are you familiar with the Wellington band called Cairo Knife Fight? They recently they moved to LA. They moved to LA a couple of years ago, but that's just a duo, and they're mad because they use all the loop stations and stuff. So I saw them in Perth in 2015 or something. They were supporting Carnival over here,
wow.
But seeing them live, just as a duo, the guitarist, like he starts playing a riff, he loops it, plays on top of it, and loops that, plays on top of that, and so the whole sound, because of all the layers that you can create, and again the drummer loops his drums too and stuff. And when you see that live, man, it was huge and so unique as well. So unique.
Yeah. That's the magic. That's the juice of it, really, is the live shows. And I feel like in the same way, if we got the opportunity to play some of those venues overseas, that, people would appreciate what we do far more than just sort of hearing about us. And, we've got a lot of friends in America, a lot of friends in the UK and Europe and around the place that have heard our music but haven't seen us. I feel like if you've only heard us and you haven't seen us, then you haven't really had the experience yet, because we're very much about that live show. So yeah, I know what you mean. I totally know what you mean. It's funny, like in New Zealand, people from all over, people from the tiniest little towns end up being the best in the world at what they do, and now they live in New York, or people in New Zealand just sort of do it, I guess, because of the small population. It's easier to stand out in some way, and then from New Zealand to the rest of the world is just the next jump. And so it seems to happen quite quickly. There's a band called Tuscoma who've done incredibly well in New Zealand and overseas. And it's really, really good to see, but it tells me that the opportunity is there if you're prepared to do the work,
I think that's the key thing. It's like you have to be willing, and you have to be able to do it.
Yeah. And you've got to be in it for the right reasons, because, man,
of course,
the amount of time that you spend on stage versus the amount of time that you spend lugging amps around and writing and practicing and doing all the other things. I mean, you have to like it. You have to like it all. Otherwise, you're not going to get to the thing that you want.
Yeah, no, that's there's definitely a lot of different reasons to play music in general, and also be able to do it on a bigger scale, and be able to do it full time. And another little question I've got just before we can head over and grab a couple of questions. That was you mentioned before about your artwork and stuff like that. So all your artwork looks quite amazing, and sort of like the whole visual side of it as well. How does that work, and like who do you collaborate with to make that happen?
Well, on command, I collaborated with a friend of mine who had been snatched into the concept art sort of division of Weta, where I used to work. And he was incredible. I mean, he worked in our department, but he was such a great artist. You'd see the doodles on paper in front of him, and you'd just be like, what are you doing here? And of course, as soon as they realized that, they snatched him and never gave him back. So, I mean, I had access to him pretty much just because I knew him, and he did a great job. And then, I mean, I'm a big art fan. I follow a lot of different artists on Instagram and wherever else I can find. I always have. I've got, 25 years worth of folders of art that I've just randomly downloaded from this place and that. And I just love it. Wow. I really, really love all of it. And I guess there's a certain style that I like the most. And I found this artist in Macedonia. His name's Antonio Ilevsky, and he goes by Pig Hands as his sort of like business name. I saw what he was doing. He was just doing this incredible cross hatching and shading using only lines, much like you would see on a banknote. And he'd done lots of other different styles, but he hadn't done the style that I had envisioned for the cover of Migrations. And so I spoke to him and I gave him a whole swag of reference. And so I really like these elements about this and these elements about that. And he took all of it on board and listened properly and just came back with the artwork for Migrations, which was just head and shoulders above what I'd ever even expected, even though I'd been following his work for a couple of years prior. And so I want to keep that as a feature of the band, is that we take a lot of time and a lot of care to write the tracks that we do, trying to make them the best that they can be. If they're not presented well online, then it loses a certain something. You've got to pay the same amount of attention to your visual side, which is your only way of communicating with people initially online. It's like if you're scrolling past and there's a great image, you might slow down and go, "Oh, what's that all about?" Also looking at Tool is a really good example of this as well. Like buy one of their CDs and pull it apart for a few hours and look at all the art and read all the stuff and the philosophies behind their music, and it translates through to their live shows. They don't just write great music and put it out there, but they present it so nicely visually that it's an all-encompassing piece of art, and that's what I really want for the band as well. I want to have that visual aspect that really makes us unique, and people go, "Oh yeah, I never listened to those guys before, but I know who you mean. I've seen their artwork. It's pretty cool."
Yeah.
And it goes right through to the merch. If there's, like the tour posters and the T-shirts that we took on tour, and all of the stuff we took on tour, we went to great pains to make sure that the merch was really, really nice quality stuff, so that you feel like you've got something. And the payment for that for us was like not really making a lot of profit out of it, but that's fine, because sometimes you only get one or two chances to do this kind of thing. And so, if you've got a business card that's really cool, you might choose to not cut that particular one up for whatever you need it for. Or if you've got a poster that's great and you're throwing a lot of stuff out, but there's this one you can't throw away, I want it to be our poster. You know what I mean? Like I want our merch and our visual side to really match the passion and the technicality and the care that we put into the audio to be matched. So hopefully I've done that.
Yeah, for sure. And are you planning on using the same guy for the upcoming album, or you looking at someone else? If you say you've got 25 years of different material, there'd be a lot of additional stuff to look at.
I mean, I'm really glad that I met Antonio, and he's become a great friend, and I love seeing the progression of his art. It's fantastic. But I feel as though we also don't want to get locked into a formula where we just pick the same fruits from the same trees all the time and go, "Hey, we did it again." It's the same combo of us five guys, this artist, that sound guy. Like with the art, there's just so many different styles that have correlations to our music that would suit that. I mean, one of the advantages of like that thing that we were sort of throwing around before about perhaps maybe recording each song as it comes along is that if we release those recorded songs as they go, we can attach another piece of art to it each time, and use different artists all the time. It's a cross-promotional thing. It helps the world see their art more as well. Like I can think of a lot of people that I've put onto Pig Hands' art that absolutely love it, and I'd love to be able to do that for another artist as well. There is an incredible amount of great artists around there. So I think we resolved to use someone different, but only to continue to keep it fresh and not just an expected thing. Like expect good quality, yes, but we don't want you to expect like, oh yeah, they've done other migrations. We just, we want to evolve, and what goes along with that is selecting art that speaks to us right now and the music right now, and making a package of that. It's a different beast. We'll be using different artists, I'm sure, but Pig Hands has been just one of the most fantastic artists I've ever had anything to do with. Honestly, he can take a brief and just knock it out of the park, no problem.
Fantastic. Yeah. You got to give me his details later. I'd like to sort of put that up as a reference, so people can check out his art. I was wondering in regards to I just thought of that here when you were talking about the new album. What sort of release plans have you got in plan for that? Are you planning any videos or any singles to be released before the album is out? Or what's the strategy?
Well, if in fact it does take album form, it hasn't really been decided whether or not we do it a song at a time, or if we do it as an album, as a collection of songs. So, but either way, I mean, I've been getting into doing a lot more music videos for other bands and stuff like that in the meantime, and so I'd certainly like to be involved in creating some more, visual eye candy for to go with our songs. So yeah, I'd love to do some more music videos, and again, through doing those videos, for us. I've sort of had the chance to meet and work with some really great people as well, and I mean, it'd be easy to get people on board again. Yeah. We're always trying to make sure that on a project like that people walk away feeling like they've done something that's made a difference and that they've enjoyed it. That's really paramount, you know.
Yep. All right. Well, if we've got any, I see we've got a couple of questions here, so I'll grab them in a sec. I've got two more things, which is, have you got? I usually ask anyone this question here, so that is because I'm really curious to sort of see if there's any sort of tips and tricks that you could share with potential other bands listening, other artists, anything that has worked for you in your career or the band in their career, but something that has made a difference for you, something that you would like to pass on to other people. Can be anything. It can be as a in the musical side of things. It can be the marketing or the sales or the business side of things. It can be anything.
I think it's to recognise that when you're working with other musicians, they're in the same position as you, and they're comrades rather than competition. That sort of way of going about things has led to stuff. You know, just respect for the bands that you play with. A lot of the guys have become really good friends over the time. Definitely when you're networking around, you know, sorting out tours or dealing with other bands. I mean, it's easier here in New Zealand. They're just great. The musicians here are awesome. I think it just stay positive, you know, and don't get too wrapped up in your own ego. Don't let it get in your way. You know, be humble. And other things seem to fall in line much better.
So just be a nice person.
Well, yeah. Humility and lack of ego really does help you. I think an ego can get in your way musically a lot, and luckily I don't really encounter much of that here in New Zealand. Just really good, down to earth, but excellent musicians. It's kind of a dream, to be honest.
Fantastic. That's awesome. All right, let us just grab a couple of questions here, and I'll get back. We'll round off on the last one in a sec. I suppose we kind of almost touched base on one of them here. We've got one here says, how did you come up with the artwork for Migrations? But I think you've kind of mentioned that already.
Well, we mentioned how we did it, but how it came to be.
How it came up? Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Image.
Yep.
Well, we were up on the up in the car park having a smoke and chatting about the artwork for Migrations one day, and Declan, the drummer, just put in this funny little comment at the end of the conversation. Just said, "Oh, it's got to have elephants in it." And you know, I thought he was just having a bit of a laugh and joke, but as soon as he said that, I thought to myself, oh, you know, when you're watching like a nature documentary or something and you see, say, a bunch of camels or a bunch of elephants walking across a tundra and the sun is low and their shadows end up taking the form of what they'd look like from the side if you were standing on the ground. I said, what about if we do something like that, you know? And so that's kind of the idea that I went to Pig Hands with. I said, you know, let's do elephants. But they can't just be ordinary elephants. They have to be maybe mammoths or beasts from a different time, a different place, a different solar system, but something that we can relate to still. So, you know, maybe sci-fi space mammoths.
No.
You know, so it started off like that. And because of the detail that Pig Hands puts into his artwork, he convinced me to take the camera back down in front of one feature beast, and I'm glad we did that because when you see them up close like that, you know, you can zoom right in, and he's just thought of everything. So yeah, it started off with me with Declan saying let's have elephants, and me going, you know, not to be outdone. All right, challenge accepted. I'm going to make your funny idea look really nice. And it's always doable if you put your mind to it. So I don't know what we'll end up doing for the next album, but it has to be intrinsic and has to relate to what we're doing in the album. That's really important. It's got to be linked, you know?
Cool. No, it's a really cool cover. The one there, it's very, very artistic. Can we expect a vinyl release of the next album?
Aha! Well, we really, really want to put Migrations on vinyl. It would take, I think it's going to take a double vinyl release to do. We've had a look at a lot of the places that do vinyl. I think the only way we could actually afford to, it's a very expensive process. I think the only way we could really afford to do it is to start a list of people who would be keen. I actually have started a list already.
Do pre-sales,
if we make that accessible for people to say, well, yes, if you did put Migrations out on vinyl, I would buy a copy. If we can get a sort of like a level of commitment from people and maybe get some pre-orders, we'll probably be able to afford to do it. But if just to get a run done and then hope that we sell them, it's a little bit financially out of all of our reach at the moment. But hopefully that sort of that sort of pre-order thing might be a way forward, with doing it. So I guess the short answer is not yet, but eventually we would love to put Migrations on a double vinyl. So, we'll be looking for opportunities to do that, but don't expect it anytime soon, basically.
I think it's also one of those things, again, like you kind of need to be a little bit more risk-free there. So again, like I said, if you can get some pre-sales, like some upfront commitment, you'd kind of need that. Otherwise, you're going to be completely out of pocket and might end up sitting with
Yeah.
To go on to the last one here, are you would you consider doing a live album?
Well, interestingly enough, we've been sitting on some VR footage of the songs off Migrations, both from right in here in the studio where we rehearse the songs to a special gig that we put on at San Fran where we were filmed in VR. And that has been mixed by, actually, Declan, the drummer in the band, mixed the live stuff from that show. We got sound out of the desk.
Oh, cool.
And I was speaking to the guy that's putting the VR stuff together along with the sound that we provided. And I think he was saying he got a grant a couple of years ago to do a bunch of Kiwi bands in VR. And he's going through them, and I think he's got one or two others to get out the way, and then in October he'll be able to look at our stuff. And so people are going to be able to get Migrations as a live thing, and to be able to either get your iPhone or a set of VR goggles, and from that point where we were filmed, be able to look around
nice.
As it's going on, and have like a menu of, if you want to skip to a song, have a floating menu up there where you can just go, boom, okay, next song, I hate that one, or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, there will be that will be out. I mean, I'm hoping before the end of the year, but if people are keen to sort of like see and hear us do these songs live, that's as close as we can get people overseas to a gig, that VR thing. So, it's taken a long time, but I really I can't wait till that comes out, because we recorded it on a night where we've been playing quite a lot, so I'm pretty happy with the performance and the sound of it all. So yes, the short answer, yes. The live stuff, Migrations will be a live VR thing.
What about playing live shows? Like, would you film any of those and release them as concerts? That's just me asking.
Well, apart from the whole show that we recorded from VR, I think perhaps in the way that we used some live footage from when we were playing at Frankie's Pizza in Sydney, as a part of the music video for Usher Wear Midnight, we'd probably use it in that way. So if we're making a music video and we've got a narrative going on, we can like flip back to us playing live, stuff like that. I don't think there's any real intention at the moment to do video concerts. It's easy to do if we feel like it, I guess, because we've got a lot of access to cameras and editors and all that sort of stuff. But I think at the moment, I'm just sort of sitting on waiting for that VR concert to come out, because it's a full hour, and we've got all those songs again here in the studio, and we've got little interviews with people in the studio as well about the album. And it's all going to be in VR. So I mean, I really can't wait to start seeing what we've recorded. And I think I probably want to see how all of that came out, so that if we did start doing more of that kind of thing, that we'd know what the pitfalls are and what works and what doesn't work. So yeah, probably just wait for that one to come out before we play any more live things.
Yeah, awesome. So how do you record in VR to begin with? That's pretty unique. I don't think I've seen anyone do that.
Well, you can do it with any 360 camera, actually. I've got an Insta360, which is two fisheye lenses that stitch together and basically give you a sphere of information, like a pixel in every direction. The guy that filmed us at San Fran had a camera, I think it was by the same company, but it was worth about $10,000 or something, and it filmed in something like 16K or something ridiculous. And it's got like an array of cameras all over it that stitch together.
Yeah.
And the amount of data that generates is crazy. So that was fixed to the ceiling above the crowd, right in front of the stage. So, and I've actually been able to have a look at some of that footage and steer myself around it, and you can sort of like look down and see, oh yeah, there's so-and-so having a good time. Oh, there's another dude having an argument with his girlfriend, checking his phone. And then you can look ahead and see us playing, and it's really cool. It's like being there even though you weren't. It's really quite cool. So I really
that's so cool, man.
Can't wait to get that out there, you know? Yeah.
So it'd be vastly different to sort of buying your what is it, like a GoPro Fusion or something. It's like a $900 camera or something.
Yeah, I mean, when you film gigs, and I film gigs for other bands quite a bit as well, and the low light thing gives you a lot of noise. So, you know, I'm hoping it's not too noisy. From memory, it wasn't too bad. I mean, it's a $10,000 camera, but I mean, the way that it works is, if you're filming from that particular point in the room, the user, the person that's viewing it, can look around like they can rotate from that position, but they can't move from that position. So, and we've only got one single node of VR of that concert, and thankfully it's right in the right spot. But you know, there's video clips by other bands that I've seen where they've recorded entire gigs from about 2 or 3 different places in 360, and then during the edit, even though you can't move from one to another, they've just made an edit and a cut where it moves from one camera to the other, and you can still look around from each one of those nodes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
you can't willfully go, I would like to move myself to that camera and look at the show from that viewpoint now. You have to let the edit take you there, but you know, it's still a step above just regular concert footage, I think.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And when do you reckon this will be out? Sort of by the end of the year, hopefully?
I'm hoping by the end of the year. I think the VR guy's got his plate sort of cleared and ready to knuckle down on our stuff in about October, he said today. I'm hoping that means and we can just give him the sound. It's been mixed, so hopefully that means we'll have something before the end of the year. Don't quote me on that, people. But you know,
that's fantastic. Yeah, awesome, man, awesome. Well, look, it's been absolutely amazing having you on here, Bern, man. Some great stories, great stories. Where should people go if they want to sort of keep up to date on the band and your progress? Can you throw out your socials?
Yeah, well, of course, we're on Facebook and Instagram, and our main site's hiboux.co.nz with all of the links to our stuff. Yeah, you'll find us if you search for Hiboux.
You probably want to spell that out for people who will be listening to this later. So.
Goddamn French words. It's Hibous.
Yep. Fantastic.
Cut the vowels off and you've got French. There you go.
That's it. Actually, just on a side note about the name, who came up with that name? Because how did a Kiwi band sort of decide to pick up
It was one of the guys in the original lineup, and people have asked me this. I can't remember who it was. I think one or two of them had French girlfriends at the time. Also, there was some kind of French influence. I mean, Tom lived in France for a year, like during the production of Migrations, and did a lot of the stuff from there with his girlfriend in France. I can't actually put my finger on what spawned the idea, but I do know that they had a list of about 100 names that they'd all thrown in, and they just whittled it down to that. It's a funny one because it's hard to pronounce and spell if you're an English speaking person, and it's I've grown up with a name like that, so it's normal for me to get asked 3 times what's your name. So yeah.
That's why you just. Well, I'm used to that too. Sort of being here in Australia,
Yeah.
That's the luxury of having a European name, a European background, I suppose. Fantastic. We're gonna finish off here on actually a song you mentioned earlier. I shall wear midnight. Can you introduce that? And probably more important, because I've noticed this is a music video that has IMDb credits. That's pretty amazing.
We created the video with the cinematographer was a guy that I used to work with at Animal Logic in visual effects probably about 20 years ago. He's got a brilliant eye for making great images with the camera. And the woman that I co-produced it with, Anna Hildebrandt, I had also worked with her at Animal Logic. She was doing film PR for Happy Feet and other various films that Animal were working on at the time. And we got along quite well. Next thing you know, she just said, look, I've started my own production company. I've got it out of the marketing side of it, and I'm now producing content. I would like to make a video for your band. Give me a song, and I just said, okay, go for it. Here's a song. Wow. And so out of listening to the song, she created a narrative. She wrote the script. She directed it. Co-produced it, and she's an absolute stellar person. If you're listening, Anna, thank you very much. I really hope to do another clip with her because, as you can see, like with her experience in the film industry and the other people that we used on it that were also, Kyla's an incredible dancer. Anna found me a bunch of dancers and said, which one would you like? Which one would fit this, So there's a lot of really, really talented people gone into the production of it. And I've only just released the clip again with the new audio from the actual album Migrations, because we obviously released that as a single year prior and have re-recorded it since. So I put the new audio on it, and I'm really proud of that one.
Fantastic.
Hopefully we can do some more stuff to that kind of level in future, at least.
Oh, it's so cinematic. It's next level. Yeah. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well,
yep.
Hopefully something will come up on the on the new album. We can do something like that again. That's an amazing video. Very, very beautifully filmed.
Thank you. Yeah. Cheers.
But and look, by the time all this here comes out on podcast, man, by all means, should get it out there. Like share it with Anna as well. It'd be great to get her feedback as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Bern, thanks again so much for your time, man. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out. And you guys, and you're 4 hours ahead now, so it's almost dinner time there. Fantastic. I will finish off with I Shall Wear Midnight, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Stefan. Cheers, bro.
Thanks, my friend. Cheers. Thanks so much for tuning in or listening along to the show. If you like the show, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to my social channels. It doesn't cost you anything, but it greatly helps me to build my networks and my chances of getting sponsors to keep this show running. If you want to take it to the next level, please head over to patreon.com/Stephen Helhammer and become a patron by joining the exclusive community there. You can start from as little as $3 per month. And for just a little extra, you get access to some fantastic features, outtakes, behind the scenes stuff, and much, much more. That's less than the cost of a cup of coffee per month. And that way you can help me build better content. I can devote more time to find awesome guests and just generally keep everything flowing. If you want to be on the show or subscribe to my mailing list, send an email to steven@helhammer.com, and that is HELhammer.com. That way I can start sending you exclusive invites, random stuff, and messages that, who knows, you might enjoy. So that's it. Have a rocking day ahead, guys, and I will see you on the live stream or in your headphones very soon. Take it easy.